We have all felt it. That distinct, hollow feeling when a promise made to us is broken. It is more than just a minor inconvenience. It is a pang of disappointment, a whisper of betrayal that can echo long after the words have faded. Why do these unmet commitments affect us so deeply? It is because promises are not just words. They are the building blocks of trust, the invisible threads that connect us to one another. When these threads snap, something fundamental within our relationships, and even our own sense of stability, begins to fray. The frustration is real, and it stems from a violation of an unspoken agreement, a pact of reliability. Consider the last time someone assured you they would do something, and then simply did not. Perhaps it was a small thing, a promise to call back, or a commitment to help with a task. Or maybe it was something much larger, a significant pledge that held real weight for your future or your well-being. The scale might differ, but the underlying experience often shares a common sting. This sting is the realization that our expectations, carefully built upon the foundation of another's word, have crumbled. It makes us question, it makes us doubt, and it can leave us feeling a little more guarded, a little less open than before. The world often seems full of grand declarations and solemn vows. We hear them from leaders, from organizations, and from the people in our daily lives. Yet how many of these declarations translate into tangible action? The gap between what is said and what is done can feel like a vast chasm. This chasm is where frustration festers. It is where cynicism takes root. When words fail to materialize into reality, they become empty vessels, devoid of the meaning and reassurance they were intended to carry. This emptiness is not just a passive void, it actively undermines our confidence in others. This journey into the realm of empty promises is not merely an academic exercise. It is an exploration of a fundamental human experience. We will look at why these broken commitments matter so profoundly, from the highest echelons of power to the most intimate corners of our personal lives. We will examine the corrosive effect they have on trust and morale, and why it is so crucial to distinguish between those who merely speak and those who truly deliver. Ultimately, understanding this dynamic helps us navigate our interactions with greater wisdom and build connections based on something far more substantial than mere words. Every promise, no matter how small, acts as a seed. When spoken, it is planted in the fertile ground of our minds and hearts. From this seed, an expectation begins to grow, nurtured by hope and belief. We naturally envision a future, however brief or significant, where that promise is fulfilled. This is not a flaw in our thinking. It is a fundamental aspect of human interaction. We are wired to connect, to cooperate, and to rely on the commitments of others. These expectations are the invisible architecture of our plans, our collaborations, and our relationships, providing a framework for what we anticipate will happen next. When a promise is made, a silent contract is formed. One person offers an assurance, a pledge of future action or behavior. The other person, by accepting or relying on this promise, invests a measure of trust. This unspoken agreement creates a bond, a sense of shared understanding and anticipated outcome. The strength of this bond is directly proportional to the perceived sincerity and importance of the promise. A casual remark might create a fleeting expectation, easily dismissed. But a solemn vow, a critical commitment, builds a much more robust structure of hope, one that is far more painful to see dismantled by non-fulfillment. The impact of breaking these promises, then, is not just about the unfulfilled action itself. It is about the shattering of that carefully constructed expectation. It is the sudden collapse of the future we had begun to imagine based on those words. Disillusionment is the natural consequence. This is the feeling of being let down, of realizing that the belief we placed in someone, or in their words, was misplaced. It is a deeply uncomfortable realization, often accompanied by feelings of disappointment, frustration, and sometimes even anger, or a sense of being devalued by the promise breaker. This process of expectation creation and subsequent disillusionment is universal. It happens in every culture and in every type of human interaction. Whether it is a child expecting a promised treat an employee anticipating a pledged promotion, or a citizen relying on a politician's campaign commitment, the underlying psychological mechanism is the same. Promises ignite hope and create a vision of what is to come. When those promises are not honored, that vision dims, and the light of trust flickers, sometimes threatening to go out completely, leaving us in the dark. Politics, almost by its very nature, is a domain ripe with promises. Candidates vying for office paint vivid pictures of a better future, outlining policies and initiatives they pledge to enact if elected. These promises are designed to inspire, to motivate, and to garner support. Citizens listen, they weigh the words, and they often cast their votes based on the belief that these commitments will be honored. The expectations created are immense, touching upon the very fabric of society, from economic stability and healthcare to education and environmental protection. These are not trivial matters, they are the cornerstones of a functioning community. However, the landscape of politics is also frequently littered with the debris of broken promises. Campaign slogans that once resonated with hope can begin to sound hollow when administrations fail to deliver on their core pledges. The reasons cited for these failures may be complex, unforeseen circumstances, political opposition, or shifting priorities. Yet for the average citizen who pinned their hopes on those initial declarations, the result is often the same: a growing sense of disappointment and a deepening cynicism towards the entire political process. This erosion of trust is not merely a fleeting sentiment, it has profound implications for democratic engagement and societal cohesion. Consider the voter who believed a promise for better schools in their district. They might have volunteered, donated, or simply cast their vote with that specific hope in mind. When years pass and the promised improvements fail to materialize, the disappointment is personal and palpable. It is not just about a policy not enacted, it is about a community's aspirations being ignored, a feeling that their concerns, and by extension they themselves, were not valued enough to warrant the promised action. This breeds a sense of powerlessness and can lead to disengagement from future political participation, which ultimately weakens the democratic system. The cycle of grand promises followed by under-delivery creates a pervasive atmosphere of skepticism. People begin to expect less, to believe less, and to invest less of their emotional energy in the words of their leaders. This is a dangerous trajectory because a healthy democracy relies on an engaged and hopeful citizenry. When trust is repeatedly broken, the very foundation of that relationship between the governed and their government starts to crumble. The challenge, then, is to find ways to hold leaders accountable not just for their words, but for the tangible outcomes of their tenure in office, fostering a culture where promises are seen as binding commitments. In the world of business, promises form the very bedrock of operations and relationships. A company promises a certain quality in its products or a specific level of service to its customers. Employers make commitments to their employees regarding career development, working conditions, or compensation. Suppliers enter into agreements with businesses, promising timely delivery of goods or services. These are not just casual utterances, they are often formalized in contracts and service-level agreements. The entire ecosystem of commerce relies on the fundamental assumption that these commitments will be largely upheld, creating a predictable and reliable environment for transactions. When businesses fail to honor their commitments, the consequences can be far-reaching and severe. A customer who receives a product that doesn't meet the advertised standards or experiences service far below what was promised feels cheated and misled. This single negative experience can lead to lost loyalty, negative reviews, and a damaged brand reputation that can take years to repair. Internally, if management fails to follow through on promises made to employees, perhaps regarding promotions, bonuses, or work-life balance initiatives, morale can plummet. Disengaged employees are less productive, less innovative, and more likely to seek opportunities elsewhere, leading to increased turnover costs. Think about a startup that secures funding based on a compelling vision and a set of ambitious promises to investors. If the leadership team consistently fails to meet milestones, communicate transparently about challenges or deliver on the core value proposition, the trust of those investors will rapidly erode. Future funding rounds become difficult, if not impossible, to secure. Similarly, a supplier who repeatedly fails to deliver on time or to the agreed quality standards can disrupt an entire supply chain, causing significant financial losses and operational headaches for their business partners. Reliability is not just a virtue in business, it is an essential component of survival and growth. The unfulfilled commitments in the business sphere, therefore, are not simply minor letdowns. They translate directly into financial costs, operational inefficiencies, and a decline in stakeholder confidence. Building a reputation for reliability, for consistently doing what you say you will do, is one of an organization's most valuable assets. It fosters customer loyalty, attracts and retains talent, and builds strong, resilient partnerships. Conversely, a pattern of broken promises signals a lack of integrity or competence, ultimately undermining the long-term viability and success of the enterprise in a competitive marketplace. Section 5. Personal bonds, the fragility of trust in our closest circles. Nowhere are the effects of broken promises felt more acutely, more personally, than within our closest relationships. These are the bonds we form with family, friends, and romantic partners. Relationships built not on formal contracts but on an intricate web of unspoken understandings, shared histories, and deep emotional investments. A promise from a loved one carries immense weight, precisely because it comes from a place of presumed care, loyalty, and deep connection. When these intimate promises are broken, the hurt cuts deeper, the disappointment feels more personal, and the damage to trust can be profoundly difficult to mend. Imagine a friend who repeatedly cancels plans at the last minute despite firm commitments, or a family member who promises support during a difficult time, only to be conspicuously absent when needed most. Consider a partner who makes vows of fidelity or emotional presence, and then fails to uphold them. These are not mere logistical failures, they are emotional betrayals. Each broken promise chips away at the foundation of the relationship, creating small fissures that over time can widen into unbridgeable chasms. The person on the receiving end begins to feel undervalued, unimportant, or even intentionally deceived by someone they hold dear. The expectations in personal relationships are often deeply intertwined with our sense of self-worth and emotional security. When a loved one breaks a promise, it can trigger feelings of inadequacy or doubt in ourselves. Am I not important enough for them to keep their word? This internal questioning adds another layer of pain to the initial disappointment. Rebuilding trust after such breaches requires immense effort, patience, and a genuine commitment from the promise breaker to demonstrate changed behavior. Sometimes the damage is so significant that the relationship in its previous form cannot be fully salvaged, leaving behind scars of disillusionment. Therefore, the integrity of our word and personal life is paramount. Small, consistent acts of keeping promises build a powerful reservoir of trust and security. Conversely, a pattern of unreliability, even in seemingly minor matters, can slowly poison the well of affection and mutual respect. It teaches our loved ones that our words cannot be fully counted upon, forcing them to become more guarded, less vulnerable, and perhaps more distant. Honoring our commitments to those closest to us is not just about being dependable. It is about actively nurturing the very essence of love, friendship, and familial connection. Section 6. The erosion of faith, long-term scars of deceit, and broken morale. When broken promises become a recurring theme rather than an occasional lapse, the long-term consequences are deeply corrosive. It's like a slow, steady drip of water on stone. Eventually, even the hardest resolve begins to wear down. Repeated experiences of unmet commitments, whether in our public institutions, our workplaces, or our personal lives, cultivate a pervasive sense of cynicism. We start to anticipate disappointment, to view new promises with a skeptical eye, and to guard our hopes more fiercely. This is not a healthy state of being, but rather a defense mechanism born from accumulated letdowns and the sting of repeated betrayal. This erosion of faith does not just affect our perception of the promise breakers, it can subtly alter our entire worldview. Morale, which is essentially our collective spirit and confidence, takes a significant hit. In an organization where leaders consistently fail to follow through, employees may become disengaged, apathetic, and less willing to go the extra mile. Why invest discretionary effort when commitments from the top are so often proven to be hollow? This decline in morale can lead to decreased productivity, higher rates of absenteeism, and a general atmosphere of negativity that stifles creativity and collaboration. On a personal level, the long-term scars of deceit can make it difficult to form new, trusting relationships. If past experiences have taught us that words are unreliable, we may approach new connections with an unconscious hesitancy, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. This can prevent us from experiencing the full depth and joy of genuine human connection. We might become overly self-reliant, hesitant to depend on others for fear of being let down yet again. This guardedness, while understandable, can lead to a sense of isolation and a diminished capacity for vulnerability, which is essential for building strong bonds. Ultimately, a society, an organization, or even an individual constantly exposed to broken promises risks developing a culture of low expectations and pervasive distrust. This makes progress difficult, as new initiatives and calls for collective action are met with weary skepticism rather than enthusiastic engagement. Rebuilding this lost faith is a monumental task, requiring not just new promises but a sustained period of consistent, demonstrable action that proves words once again have meaning. The damage is easy to inflict with carelessness, but incredibly hard to repair, leaving lasting marks on our collective psyche and individual hearts. Section 7. The Great Divide: Distinguishing Talkers from True Doers. In every sphere of life there exists a fundamental distinction between those who primarily talk and those who consistently do. Talkers can be incredibly persuasive. They might possess charisma, eloquence, and the ability to paint compelling visions with their words. They articulate grand plans, make bold pronouncements, and can easily generate excitement and initial buy-in. However, their energy often seems to dissipate when the time comes for execution. Their promises, while sounding impressive, often remain just that, words, unsupported by the hard work and follow-through required to bring them into reality. It's easy to be captivated by a good story, but a story alone doesn't build bridges or cure ills. True doers, on the other hand, may not always be the most vocal or flamboyant. Their strength lies not in the grandeur of their declarations, but in the quiet consistency of their actions. They understand that a promise is a debt, and they diligently work to honor that debt. They focus on the practical steps, anticipate challenges, and persevere even when the path is difficult. Their impact is measured not by the volume of their speech, but by the tangible results they achieve. These are the individuals and organizations that build lasting value, earn genuine respect, and create a foundation of reliability that others can depend upon. The challenge for all of us is to become adept at distinguishing between these two archetypes. It requires looking beyond superficial charm and carefully examining past performance. Does the individual or entity have a track record of fulfilling their commitments? Are their words consistently backed by credible actions? Or is there a pattern of elaborate talk followed by inaction or excuses? This discernment is crucial because investing our trust, our resources, or our hopes in a talker who rarely delivers is a recipe for perpetual frustration and wasted energy. We must learn to listen not just to what is said, but to observe what is consistently done. Developing this ability to see past the rhetoric is a skill. It means asking probing questions, seeking evidence of past accomplishments, and not being swayed solely by enthusiasm or ambitious claims. It also means valuing the often less glamorous but far more substantial contributions of the doers. In a world that often rewards loud voices, it is important to remember that real progress, real change, and real trust are built by those who roll up their sleeves and get the work done, often without fanfare, but always with integrity and a commitment to their word. Section 8. The Cornerstone of Integrity: Embracing Accountability and valuing honesty. At the heart of every kept promise lies the principle of accountability. Accountability means taking ownership of one's commitments, responsibilities, and actions. It is the willingness to answer for the outcomes, whether they are successful or fall short of the initial pledge. When someone is accountable, they understand that their words have consequences, and that others are relying on them. This sense of responsibility is a powerful motivator for following through. It moves a promise from a mere statement of intent to a binding personal or organizational obligation. Without accountability, promises become cheap, easily made, and just as easily broken without repercussion. Honesty is the inseparable partner of accountability. When unforeseen circumstances make it impossible to fulfill a promise as originally intended, honesty demands transparency. It requires communicating openly and promptly about the challenges, explaining the reasons for the potential shortfall, and where possible, proposing alternative solutions or making amends. Trying to hide a failure, make excuses, or shift blame only deepens the wound caused by the broken promise and further erodes trust. True integrity is demonstrated not by never failing, but by how one responds when faced with the inability to meet a commitment. Acknowledging a lapse with honesty can, paradoxically, sometimes strengthen trust in the long run. Embracing accountability is not always easy. It requires courage to admit when we are wrong or when we have overcommitted. It demands a level of maturity to face the disappointment of others and to take steps to rectify the situation. However, organizations and individuals who cultivate a culture of accountability find that it fosters a much stronger sense of trust and reliability. When people know that commitments will be taken seriously and that there will be honest communication, even when things go awry, they are more willing to invest their faith and their efforts. This creates a positive feedback loop of dependability and mutual respect. Therefore, we must champion accountability in ourselves and expect it from others. We should value leaders who own their mistakes, businesses that are transparent about their shortcomings, and friends who are honest even when it is uncomfortable. This is not about creating a punitive environment, but rather one where responsibility is seen as a strength and honesty is revered. When accountability and honesty are the cornerstones of our interactions, the likelihood of promises being empty diminishes significantly, replaced by a more robust framework of genuine commitment and earned trust, leading to more positive outcomes for everyone involved. Section 9. Beyond the words, championing action and honoring delivery. Ultimately, the antidote to the frustration of empty promises is a collective shift in focus, from the allure of words to the substance of action. While communication is vital, and aspirations articulated through promises can inspire, it is the follow-through, the tangible delivery, that truly matters. We must cultivate a discerning eye and ear, learning to weigh actions far more heavily than mere declarations. It is easy to speak of grand visions or to make sweeping commitments, but it is the consistent, diligent execution of those commitments that builds trust, achieves results, and makes a genuine difference in the world. We should actively seek out and champion the doers, the individuals, organizations, and leaders who have a proven track record of transforming their words into reality. These are the reliable pillars in our communities, workplaces, and personal lives. By recognizing, celebrating, and supporting those who deliver, we reinforce the value of integrity and dependability. This creates a positive incentive structure where reliability is rewarded, and mere rhetoric, however eloquent, is seen for what it is if not backed by substance. This shift encourages a culture where walking the talk becomes the expected norm, not the exception. In our own lives, we can contribute to this shift by striving to be people of our word. Before making a promise, we should consider carefully whether we have the intention and the capacity to fulfill it. It is better to promise less and deliver more than to overpromise and consistently underdeliver, thereby eroding the trust others place in us. When we do make a commitment, we must treat it with the seriousness it deserves, understanding that our reliability is a reflection of our character and directly impacts our relationships and our reputation. Each promise kept strengthens our own integrity. Let us therefore move forward with a renewed appreciation for action over assertion, for delivery over declaration. Let us build our trust on the solid foundation of observed behavior and fulfilled commitments, rather than on the shifting sands of unproven words. By valuing consistency, demanding accountability, and honoring those who reliably deliver, we can collectively reduce the sting of empty promises and foster a world where words and actions align more closely. This alignment is where true progress is made, where strong relationships flourish, and where genuine faith in one another can be confidently placed, leading to a more dependable and trustworthy environment for all.